Welcome to Sarah Wood's Tale, where stories comes alive. Please do well to hit that subscription button and turn on your notification bell for subsequent stories. As a woman, I could encourage you to know your worth. Know that you are beautiful and gorgeous and you are worth every love. This is a love story. James Carter was a well-known man in the neighborhood of Hilltown. Every Sunday, he wore a neat suit and carried a Bible to church. He greeted the neighbors with a smile and helped the elderly carry their groceries. People looked at him and said, "That man is a role model." But behind the tall brown gate of his house, the truth was different. Emily, his wife of 6 years, lived like a ghost in her own home. She walked quietly, spoke softly, and always looked over her shoulder. Her once bright eyes now held fear and sadness. To the world, she was lucky to have James, but she knew what happened when the doors were closed. "You stupid woman," James shouted one evening as he threw a glass cup across the living room. It shattered against the wall, just inches from Emily's head. "I'm sorry, James. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to. You messed up my shirt with your stupid ironing. Look at the crease. Do you want me to look like a fool in front of Mr. Benson?" Emily trembled. "I'll fix it, I promise. Just shut up." James snapped and stormed out of the room. From the hallway, 5-year-old Ava peeked through the gap in the door, hugging her stuffed bear tightly. Emily walked slowly to the broken glass and knelt down to pick the pieces. A small cut appeared on her palm, but she didn't flinch. It wasn't the first time. That night, after putting Ava to bed, Emily sat on the edge of her own bed. Her body was sore, not from physical pain that night, but from the heavy weight on her heart. How did it come to this? She had once dreamed of a loving family. When she married James, he was charming and full of promises. But those sweet days didn't last long. The first slap came when she spilled tea on his laptop. Then came the silence treatments, the insults, the punches, and the pushing. Over time, he became a man she didn't recognize. But she stayed for Ava. Sometimes, Emily thought of leaving, but where would she go? James always reminded her, "You are nothing without me. I made you. I feed you. You'll be begging in the streets if you ever leave." The words stuck to her mind like poison. The next morning, James wore the very shirt he had insulted the night before. "You better not burn the toast again," he warned as he grabbed his car keys. Emily placed the toast carefully on the table. "I didn't. It's golden brown, just the way you like it." He gave a mocking laugh. "The way I like it. You think you know anything about what I like? Just keep quiet and stay useful, Emily." She forced a smile and nodded. As James drove off, Ava came into the kitchen. "Mommy, why is Daddy always angry?" Emily knelt down and hugged her. "He's just tired, sweetheart. Let's eat breakfast, okay?" But Ava was old enough to understand that this wasn't normal. It was a rainy evening. Thunder rumbled across the sky, and the rain hit the roof like falling stones. Inside the house, Emily was in the kitchen, making dinner. She stirred the soup gently, while Ava sat on the kitchen stool, drawing in her notebook. James had returned home earlier than usual. He was already in a bad mood, slamming the door and throwing his wet jacket onto the sofa. "Emily," he barked. She flinched and came running. "Yes. What is this nonsense on the TV? My house is not a daycare center." Ava had been watching cartoons. Emily quickly picked up the remote and switched off the TV. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice the volume." James stood up and walked toward her. "You didn't notice? What do you even notice, Emily? You're useless. A waste of space. I said I'm sorry. Please calm down. Ava is." Before she could finish her sentence, his hand flew across her cheek. Ava screamed from the kitchen. "Daddy, stop." But James didn't stop. He grabbed Emily by the arm and pushed her toward the wall. Her back hit it hard. "You think you can talk back to me? You think you're something special?" Emily tried to catch her breath. "Please, don't do this. Not in front of Ava." "Why not? Let her see what happens to ungrateful women." Then, in a moment that felt like a nightmare, James grabbed a small suitcase from the bedroom and threw it at her feet. "Pack your things. You're leaving my house tonight." Emily stared at him, shocked. "You're serious?" Dead serious. I'm done with you. You're nothing, Emily. I made you. Everything you have is because of me. Now get out. But Ava. She's staying, he said coldly. No. Emily shouted, holding her daughter protectively. You can't separate me from my child. James's eyes were wild with rage. Then take her too. But don't come crying to me when you're starving. Emily fell to her knees. Where will I go? Please, not like this. He opened the door, and the cold rain rushed into the room. Out. Ava clung to her mother, crying. Mommy, don't leave. I'm scared. With her heart breaking, Emily stood up. She had no choice. She picked up the half-packed suitcase, carried Ava, and walked into the storm. Her feet splashed through puddles as thunder roared above. The streets were dark, but Emily kept walking. Each step hurt, physically and emotionally. She stopped under a tree for a moment, soaking wet, and looked at Ava's scared face. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. But I promise, Mommy will make everything okay. Ava nodded, hugging her tighter. That night, Emily found shelter at a small church a few blocks away. The kind old pastor let her sleep on a bench, and his wife brought her dry clothes and hot tea. As she sat in the corner, holding Ava tightly, Emily wiped her tears. She had been broken, thrown away, humiliated. But something inside her stirred. I may have nothing now, she whispered to herself, but I will rise. Not for James. Not for revenge. For Ava. For myself. And so, the journey of the woman he threw away had just begun. The morning after Emily and Ava slept on a church bench, the pastor's wife, Mama Ruth, gently woke them up with warm bread and a kind smile. My child, Mama Ruth said softly, you can't stay on the streets with this little one. But I know a place, a women's foundation not too far from here. They help women like you. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much. Later that morning, she was taken to Hope Haven Foundation, a home for women and children escaping abuse. The building was simple but warm. It smelled of soap and spices, and children's laughter echoed in the halls. The head of the foundation, a kind woman named Mrs. Collins, welcomed her. You're safe now, Emily. And so is Ava. You'll get your strength back here. Days turned into weeks. Emily slowly healed. The bruises on her skin faded, but the ones on her heart remained. Still, she didn't let her pain stop her. One afternoon, during therapy at the center, Mrs. Collins asked her, Emily, what did you love doing before all this pain started? Emily looked at her hands and smiled faintly. I used to make soap. Natural soap, from herbs. It helped with Ava's skin rash. That's a gift, Mrs. Collins said. Why don't you make some again? We have a small kitchen here. Try. You never know where it might lead. That night, Emily stayed up mixing oils and herbs. She remembered her grandmother's old recipes and carefully created a batch of soothing lavender soap. The next morning, other women at the shelter tried it. This smells amazing, one of them said. My skin feels soft already, said another. Soon, the women began asking for more. With permission from Mrs. Collins, Emily began selling the soaps at local weekend markets. She labeled them MC Naturals M for Emily and C for Carter, the name she refused to be ashamed of. Each bar was wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Simple. Honest. Just like her. Sales grew slowly. She made just enough to save a little and buy more supplies. One sunny Saturday, as she was selling at a market, a man in a neat blue shirt stopped by her stall. He picked up a bar of soap and sniffed it. This is handmade, he asked. Emily nodded. Yes. All natural ingredients. I make them myself. He smiled. I like the branding. Clean. Authentic. And the scent, it's comforting. Thank you, Emily said, a bit surprised by his interest. I'm Daniel Moore, the man said, handing her his card. I invest in small businesses. Would you be open to a conversation? Emily's eyes widened. Me? Are you serious? Very. Let's talk next week. You have something special here. That night, Emily sat on her bed in the shelter, staring at the business card. Is this real? She whispered to Ava, who was already asleep beside her. For the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to dream again. The meeting with Daniel Moore happened in a quiet cafe. Daniel listened carefully as Emily told her story. She didn't hide her past. Instead, she shared it with calm honesty. "I don't want pity," she told him. "I just want a chance." Daniel smiled. "You don't need pity. You need support. And I want to help you build something strong." With his help, Emily got a small workspace and better packaging. They launched a simple website and created an Instagram page. Her story and her product caught people's attention fast. From broken to beautiful, one blog wrote after interviewing her. "The woman who rose from the ashes." Orders came pouring in. Women across the country wanted her soaps not just because they were good, but because they came with a message of strength. Soon, Emily had to hire 3 other women from the shelter to help her. "I want to give back," she told Mrs. Collins. "If I rise, I want them to rise with me." The bond between Emily and Daniel also grew. He respected her. He saw her pain, but he also saw her power. "You don't know how strong you are," he told her one day during a product shoot. "You're changing lives, Emily. Including mine." She smiled, grateful. "I used to feel like nothing. Now, I feel like I matter." Months turned into a year. MC Naturals expanded from soap into body oils, scrubs, and facial masks. Her products were stocked in boutiques and spas. People loved the brand's raw, honest feel. It wasn't just about skincare, it was about healing. Then came the biggest moment yet, a feature on national TV. Emily was interviewed on a popular morning show. "I was thrown out with nothing but my daughter and a suitcase," she told the interviewer. "But I promised her I'd never stay broken. That's why I built this." The interviewer smiled. "What do you call yourself now, Emily?" She looked into the camera with poise and said, "I call myself the woman he threw away, but God picked up. And I turned that pain into purpose." Back at home, yes, her own apartment now, Emily sat in a beautiful kitchen with Ava. "Mom," Ava said, smiling, "can I be the boss of MC someday?" Emily laughed. "Of course, my love. It's your legacy too." Ava paused. "Do you think Daddy knows how well we're doing now?" Emily's face softened. "Maybe. But it doesn't matter anymore. We don't live in his shadow." She looked around the apartment, touched the soft fabric of her tailored dress, and smiled. The scars were still there, deep inside, but they were no longer wounds. She was whole. James Carter sat on the edge of his broken sofa in a dim, one-room apartment. The air smelled of sweat and cheap beer. Empty bottles lay scattered on the floor, and unpaid bills were piled high on the table. His clothes were wrinkled, his beard unshaved, and his eyes, once full of pride, were now tired and lifeless. "Man, how did it get this bad?" he muttered to himself, rubbing his temples. 3 years ago, James had a good job at a construction company. He was respected, had a decent paycheck, and people still called him boss around the neighborhood. But then the drinking started. It began slowly, just a little at night to relax. Then it became every day. And soon, he was showing up to work late, shouting at workers, and getting into fights with his manager. One day, after throwing a toolbox in anger, the company let him go. "I built this company," James had shouted. But no one listened. No one cared. Since then, life had been a steady fall. Friends disappeared. His pride turned to bitterness. He blamed everyone but himself, especially Emily. "That stupid woman," he often said. "She made me angry. She was weak." He had no idea where she went after he kicked her out. He never tried to look. Now, broke and desperate, James stood in line at a local job center. Next, the receptionist called out. James stepped forward. His clothes were stained, and his shoes had holes. "What kind of job are you looking for?" she asked without looking up. "Anything," James mumbled. "Anything at all." She looked at him and typed something into her computer. "There's a vacancy for a cleaner at a skincare company. MC Naturals. They're hiring immediately." James sighed. "Cleaning? You said anything," she replied. He clenched his jaw but nodded. "Fine. Where is it?" She handed him a paper. Be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. Wear black trousers and a clean shirt. Don't be late. The next morning, James stood in front of a tall, glass building with the gold logo, MC Naturals. He looked around at the polished floors, the security guards in neat uniforms, and the beautiful receptionist at the front desk. This place looks fancy, he muttered. He was introduced to the head janitor, a man named Patrick. You'll clean the offices on the 3rd floor, Patrick said. Be respectful. This company values dignity and cleanliness. James nodded silently. As he pushed a cleaning cart through the hallways, he couldn't help but feel small. Everyone walked by in suits, greeting each other with smiles. They didn't even look at him. Just do the job, he told himself. He had no idea that the company he was now working for belonged to the woman he had once thrown out in the rain. It had been 2 weeks since James started cleaning at MC Naturals. He kept his head down, working quietly. Most people ignored him, except a few who smiled politely. One morning, while mopping the hallway, he overheard 2 women talking. I heard Madam Emily is back from her trip today, one of them said. Oh yes, the other replied. She's having a board meeting in her office at 10. I can't wait to see her outfit, she's always so classy. James didn't pay attention. The name Emily meant nothing to him now. He had known many Emilys in his life. At exactly 10, he was called to clean the executive floor. He pushed the cart slowly, wiping tables and windows. Then Patrick pointed to a door at the far end. Clean Madam Emily's office next, he said. She stepped out for a while. James nodded and entered the office. It was large and elegant. Glass walls. A soft cream carpet. Scented candles on the shelves. A portrait of a woman and a young girl sat on the desk. He picked it up. The woman looked familiar, strong face, deep eyes, and graceful posture. The girl in the photo looked like... His breath caught. He turned the photo over. Written neatly on the back, Emily and Ava. 2023. His hand shook. No, he whispered. It can't be. He turned around just as the door opened. She stepped in. He froze. Emily Carter, now Emily Moore, stood tall in a fitted blue dress and heels. Her hair was styled, her skin glowing, and her eyes sharp with power. She held a leather folder and a phone in her hand. James stared at her like he had seen a ghost. Emily, he stammered. Her eyes locked onto his. The room fell silent. Emily's heart thudded in her chest, but her face remained calm, unreadable. James, she said coolly. So, it's you. He blinked. You work here? She tilted her head slightly. No. I don't work here, James. I own this company. His mouth dropped open. He stepped back slowly, as if he couldn't believe his ears. You own it, he whispered. Yes, she said, walking past him to sit at her desk. I built MC Naturals from nothing. Just like you said I was. He swallowed hard, guilt creeping into every corner of his face. I didn't know. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to throw me out into the rain with a baby, she interrupted sharply. You didn't mean to beat me for years and call me worthless. James looked down at the floor, ashamed. I lost everything, he said quietly. I lost my job, my home, everything. Emily looked at him, her eyes icy cold. Now you know how it feels, she said. You threw me out when I was broken. But I didn't stay down. He raised his head, tears forming in his eyes. I'm sorry, Emily. I really am. She looked at him for a long moment. I'm not the same woman you used to hurt, she said calmly. You'll do your cleaning job here with respect. And we'll never have a personal conversation again. He nodded slowly. Yes, She turned her chair around and looked out the window, ending the conversation. James walked out, trembling. As he closed the door behind him, his heart sank with a pain deeper than anything he had ever felt before. He had lost her. And now, he had to clean the floors she walked on. James stood outside Emily's office door, hands shaking. He had tried to go back to work after their meeting, but he couldn't. His heart was heavy. His head throbbed with memories. And now, for the first time in his life, he felt truly ashamed. He knocked softly. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Come in, Emily's voice came, firm and cold. James opened the door slowly and stepped in. Emily didn't even look up. She was typing on her laptop. Emily, please. Just a moment, he said, voice cracking. She finally raised her head. Did you forget something? No. I mean, yes. I forgot to say I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. James walked closer, then dropped to his knees. I'm begging you, he whispered. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't carry this anymore. Life has punished me, Emily. I've lost everything. You lost everything? She asked, voice calm. He nodded, tears running down his face. I sleep in a shared room with cockroaches. I eat from plastic bags. People look down on me. And I remember what I did to you. Every day. It haunts me. I was cruel. I was blind. You were the best thing I ever had, and I destroyed it. Emily stood up slowly and walked around her desk. She looked down at him, kneeling, broken, desperate. Then, in a low voice, she said, You remember that night you threw me out into the rain? Do you remember what you said? James looked away. I remember, she said. You stood in the doorway, and as I cried and begged you not to do it for the sake of our daughter, you said, You are nothing. I made you. He swallowed hard. Emily bent down slightly and looked him in the eyes. Now listen carefully. Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. You are nothing. I made you. James's face twisted in pain as the words hit him like knives. I picked up my life from the ground you threw me on, Emily continued. I built something beautiful out of the pieces you left behind. And you destroyed yourself. She turned and walked to the window, staring out at the city skyline. James remained on his knees, trembling. I'm not that weak woman anymore, she said. I don't cry at night. I don't hide my bruises. I don't wait for love from a man who only knows how to break things. I know, James whispered. I see that now. Emily turned to him again. You want forgiveness? She asked. He nodded. Then forgive yourself, she said. But don't ever expect it from me. Now get up. James stood slowly, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. Thank you for listening, he said. She didn't reply. As he walked to the door, Emily said one last thing. You'll continue working here. But not because I want you near. You'll work here to understand what it means to serve. What it means to be beneath someone you once called worthless. He nodded and left the office, his legs heavy and heartbroken. That night, James lay on the floor of his shared room, unable to sleep. The fan made a clicking sound above his head. The room smelled of sweat and dust. But James didn't care. His eyes were fixed on the ceiling, but his mind was far away. He started to remember. Flashback. Emily was on the floor, her arms over her head. Blood trickled from her lip. Ava, just 3 years old, stood in the corner, crying. Please, James, Emily had begged. Not in front of her. But he had shouted louder. He had kicked the table. He had slapped her again. I said shut up, he had screamed. End flashback. James groaned and turned to his side. More memories poured in. The night Emily went into early labor from stress. The day he blamed her for ruining his shirt. The way she used to shrink every time he walked in the room. Now those memories were knives in his chest. I was a monster, he whispered. He got up and pulled out a small notebook from under his mattress. It was something he had picked up weeks ago, hoping to write his thoughts. That night, he began writing letters. Dear Ava, I don't know if you'll ever read this. You probably hate me. I don't blame you. I hated myself too. I'm sorry for being the kind of father who made you cry. I'm sorry for hurting your mother. I was wrong. I wish I could go back and protect you. I wish I could erase your pain. But I can't. All I can do now is write. And maybe one day, you'll read these letters and know that your father finally understood what he did. Love. James Carter. He closed the notebook and held it to his chest. The next morning, James saw Ava at the reception desk. She was now 9, helping her mother on weekends. He smiled, nervously. She looked at him with cold eyes, then turned away. That hurt more than any slap he had ever given Emily. He wanted to run to her, to explain, to say I've changed. But he didn't. Because deep down, he knew. Some wounds don't heal with time. Some wounds never forget. And some second chances never come. Emily stood by the tall glass window in her office, arms crossed. Her eyes watched the busy city below, but her mind was elsewhere. She hadn't been able to stop thinking about James on his knees, crying, broken. That man looked nothing like the monster she once knew. And yet, the memories of what he did still lived inside her like a wound that never fully healed. A soft knock came at her door. "Come in," she said, not turning around. Daniel Moore stepped in, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Green tea. Just how you like it," he said with a gentle smile. Emily smiled faintly and took a cup. "Thank you." They sat together in silence for a moment. Then Daniel asked, "You've been quiet all day. Thinking about him?" She nodded. "I don't know what to feel, Daniel. Part of me feels nothing. But another part feels pity." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Pity is still a feeling, Emily. You've done so well. You don't owe him anything." "I know," she whispered. "But I don't want to carry this bitterness anymore." Daniel watched her closely. "Then let it go. Not for him. For you." She turned to him, eyes soft. "But how do I do that? After everything he did. After the nights I bled. The nights I cried while Ava clung to me like I was her only world." Daniel gently placed his hand over hers. "Forgiveness isn't saying what he did was okay," he said. "It's saying you won't let it control your heart anymore. You're not the woman he threw away, Emily. You're the woman who rose from the ashes. Let that be your freedom." Emily looked down, blinking back tears. That evening, she drove alone to the old part of town. She had called James and told him she wanted to speak privately. He waited for her outside a small diner, wearing the same cleaner's uniform, holding his hat in both hands. When he saw her step out of her sleek black car, his heart sank. She looked even stronger than the last time. Her confidence lit up the street. She walked up to him slowly. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice low. "I didn't come for you," she said. "I came for myself." They sat inside the quiet diner. The air smelled of fried eggs and old wood. It reminded Emily of the past, of simpler times before pain took over. James looked down at his hands. "I wanted to say thank you," he whispered. "For not reporting me. For not humiliating me." Emily shook her head. "I didn't need to. You're already living the consequences." He nodded. "You're right." There was silence again. Heavy, painful silence. Then Emily spoke. "I used to dream of this day," she said. "The day you would suffer like I did. The day you would cry and feel helpless. But when I saw you begging, it didn't make me feel better. It made me feel tired." James blinked, confused. "Tired of carrying the hate," she explained. "Tired of remembering every bruise, every insult, every scream. I want to stop remembering you as my pain." James swallowed hard. "Then what do you want to remember?" "Myself. The woman I am now. The woman who rose from nothing. The woman you tried to break, but failed." He nodded slowly, eyes wet. "I forgive you, James." His head shot up, eyes wide. "You do?" "Yes," she said. "But don't mistake it for love. Or friendship. Or reconciliation. I forgive you so I can finally be free." He lowered his head. "That's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." She stood up and placed some cash on the table. "I'll see you at the office tomorrow. For the last time." Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking powerfully against the floor. James stayed behind, tears falling into his trembling hands. The next morning, James walked into the staff lounge of MC Naturals with heavy steps. He was no longer the arrogant man who once shouted commands and slammed doors. Now, he quietly swept floors, emptied trash bins, and avoided eye contact with the other staff. That morning, he was told to report to HR. Inside the room, Emily sat at the head of the table, calm and composed. James stood in front of her. I've decided it's time to let you go, she said plainly. He didn't argue. I understand. There's a severance package. Enough to help you get on your feet, she added. He looked at the envelope in her hand but didn't reach for it. You're doing this out of pity? No, she replied. I'm doing this because I want closure. For both of us. James finally took the envelope and whispered, "Thank you." Emily gave a short nod. Before he turned to leave, he looked at her one last time. You were always stronger than me, he said. She didn't reply. He walked out. As the door closed behind him, Emily let out a slow breath. The last string tying her to that painful chapter had finally been cut. That weekend, Emily stood backstage at a large women's empowerment seminar held in Nairobi. Her assistant fixed the microphone on her dress. You ready, she asked. Emily smiled softly. Yes. More than ever. She stepped onto the stage. The crowd of over 1,000 women clapped loudly. Some already knew her story. Others had only seen her face on magazine covers. She stood tall, confident in a beautiful white suit that sparkled under the lights. Good afternoon, she began, her voice strong. My name is Emily Carter, CEO of MC Naturals. But once upon a time, I was just a woman begging my husband not to hit me again. The room fell silent. I was the woman who was told she was nothing. That she would be nothing without him. I was the woman who cried herself to sleep. Who held her baby close while bleeding inside and out. Gasps filled the air. Some women began to cry. But look at me now, she said, stepping forward. I am no longer that woman. I am the woman who rose from pain. I am the woman who built her own empire. I am the woman he threw away, and I became a queen. The crowd stood up, clapping, cheering, crying. Emily smiled through her own tears. I share this not for pity, she said, but to remind every woman here that your pain is not the end of your story. You can rewrite it. You can rise. You can shine. After her speech, women lined up to hug her, thank her, tell their stories. Some were survivors. Some were still hurting. And as Emily looked at each of them, she saw a reflection of her old self. But she also saw hope. Ava ran up to her after the event, beaming. Mommy, you were amazing. Emily knelt down and hugged her daughter tight. We made it, baby. We really made it. Ava whispered, You're a queen, Mommy. Emily smiled through tears. No, she said softly. We are. Please don't forget to hit the like button, comment and subscribe to get more interesting stories like this.